Hello, everybody. Hi, Emma and Joshua. This is Mindy Wilson. I'm in the Center for Career and Professional Development, and today we are doing a mini career chat on communications and marketing. Today we have two alumni here to talk to us. Jacquie Sale Peterson, she's class of 2000. She's the marketing specialist at Brandstetter Carroll Inc. And then Tori Parker, class of 2016. And hold on, I'm trying to admit students while I talk. She is the project manager at the Speed Art Museum, or the marketing project manager at the Speed Art Museum. So we will let them go ahead and talk, and then hopefully have some time for questions at the end. And students, if you are not muted, if your volume or your audio is not muted, please do so now. Thanks.
All right, well, I will get started. Like Mindy said, I graduated in 2000 from Center, and while I was there, I got a job like a lot of students do. Mine happened to be in the athletics department, and I was in sports information, which basically is the public relations arm of the athletics department. So there I learned how to write press releases, how to deal with media. I was the press box manager. And then I also worked on the Cento as a sports reporter and then later the sports editor. Why those things are important now is that a lot of the skills I learned then are skills that I still use today. I don't do as much with press releases, but I have over my career. Don't do so much that today, but desktop publishing is something that I use just about every day. And in just about every job I've had, I've used that. So it's a really, really good skill. And it was a great way to introduce myself to marketing and communications without saying, okay, this is gonna be my career and jumping in. So that helped me kind of work through what I really like to do. Once I was finished at Center, I thought that I would like to continue in athletics communications. And so I got an internship for a year at UK in athletics. And that was a really interesting year. It was a lot of fun. I continued to work in sports information. I was responsible for women's soccer, swimming and diving, and softball. And so again, I was responsible for all the really the public relations side of that. They had a marketing department at UK and athletics, so we didn't do so much of promoting the events, but anytime that we had a match, game, meet, whatever, I traveled with the team. I wrote press releases. I helped them be honored as athlete of the week or whatever. And again, that was just furthering those skills. Really definitely helped me work with media because beyond those areas, I also had responsibilities in football and men's and women's basketball, and they varied. Once I get finished with my year, I decided that really wasn't what I wanted to do. It's a very busy career. It's really fun, but I knew that eventually I wanted to have a family and that I probably didn't want to travel quite so much. And so I started to think, okay, what do I want to do? I knew I wanted to go to grad school, and I ended up getting my MBA. One of the reasons I decided to go for an MBA instead of, say, a master's of communication was I knew it was a little more flexible. And that way I could kind of determine, if I really didn't want to stay in marketing, there might be something else that kind of caught my eye. And so while I was in my MBA program, I met a woman who worked for UK Healthcare. And she just so happened that my mom worked at UK at the time, and she was one of her, my mom was one of this lady's client contacts. And she told my mom as we were graduating that she was leaving. And she said, Jackie really should apply for this. So that's how I got my first job out of grad school, was knowing somebody, which is always really useful, at the Center Mafia. But anyways, I did apply and I became a product line marketing manager for UK Healthcare. And I was there for about 5.5 years. A lot of people are really interested in healthcare and hospital marketing because they think, why do people have to market hospitals? When you get sick, that's where you go. But we had a lot of competition. Just here in Lexington, there are, I think, 2 or 3 other hospitals. Plus you have regional hospitals like the place I went to work next, Georgetown Community Hospital. So you have community hospitals, and you have something like the Cleveland Clinic or Mayo Clinic that we could be competing against. So I did a lot of work there in pure marketing, advertising. Digital wasn't really big then. Social media really wasn't big. So we did a lot of print. We did some advertising. We had budgets that we had to stick within, and for my areas, they were a little smaller than some of the overall marketing. But I worked there about 5.5 years, and then a position of the as a director of marketing came available at Georgetown Community Hospital, and so I took that position and worked there for a little over 2 years. That was a great opportunity for me because I was a one-man band, if you will. I had to do everything. I did marketing, communications, public relations, a lot of community relations, and it was great. I really enjoyed working there. Unfortunately, that was in 2009, and we went through a bunch of layoffs. It was a bad economy at the time. I'm trying to recover from 2007, and it's a lot easier to not necessarily need a marketing person for a few months as opposed to not needing a doctor or nurse at a hospital. So then I was unemployed, and I thought, okay, do I want to change jobs? Do I want to do something a little different? And a position at Ephraim McDowell Health in Danville came open as their marketing director. And I thought, oh, well, I love Danville. I'd really like to move back there. And I interviewed, and they ended up hiring another gentleman, but apparently they liked me during the interview because they asked me to apply for a marketing/foundation position, which I did, and I got. And so at first the position was half marketing, half foundation. And then we had some changes internally, and it went to like 10% marketing, 90% foundation. And at first you might think, well, foundation really doesn't sound much like marketing, but you have to market your foundation. The services we provided were we would give medicine to people who didn't have the means to afford medicine or other durable medical goods. We funded a lot of different projects throughout the hospital. Each year we had a camp called Camp Can Do, where children with special needs could come and have a typical camp experience. This is a really good one for this time. We had a robot that kind of looked a little bit like R2D2. There was a UV light, and it would go around and kill all the germs in the hospital. So like a coronavirus. At the time we were dealing with Ebola. So we did lots of things like that. And so in order to get funding, I mean, I really did still have to step into that marketing communication role. And then I worked there about 8 years and decided I was kind of ready for a change. I really didn't mean to end up in healthcare marketing. It just kind of happened. And so the director of communications position came open at our local school, Boyle County. And I interviewed and received that position. And I worked there for about a year. Coronavirus hit in the spring, and they weren't really sure with tax revenues how that was going to play out. So they extended my contract through December, but then they were going to have to end the contract and let me go. I didn't want to wait that long. And so I started looking around for another position and found one here at Branstetter Carroll. We're an architecture and engineering firm. So we design buildings, we do site development, a lot of things that enhance communities and quality of life. So we do rec centers, libraries, city halls, police and fire, aquatic centers, things like that, all the fun kind of things that you have for the most part in your community. And my job is even a little different here, even though I'm a marketing specialist and technically what I do is marketing. I actually put together proposals. So when we find that library, that aquatic center that we want to design, then it's my job to look at the request for proposal and put it all together, make sure it looks really nice. And then I send it out, and hopefully we get the job. That's really fun. But a lot of what I like about that is, again, it's desktop publishing. It's a lot of editing. There's some writing in there, really more rewriting. The architects or engineers write something, and then I decide if that's the best way to say that. And then putting the nice pictures in. So they're each basically their own brochure that looks really nice. And so that's what I've been doing for about 6 months now, and I really love it. I work with really wonderful people, which I would definitely always encourage. And that's one thing I like about marketing and communications. A lot of those things are kind of wrapped up together: marketing, communications, public relations, foundation. There's a lot of places you can go, and there's a lot of variety. Now there's social media, that a lot of companies have their own social media person, somebody just doing that. So that's kind of interesting. I learned a lot about that at the schools. And so I would just suggest that, learn all the skills that you can, no matter what job you have, because you never know when they'll come in handy.
Thanks, Jacquie. I think Tori, you're up.
Okay, I'm gonna start my own timer because I'm not very good at timing. I'm Tori Parker. I graduated in the class of 2016. I was sorry, my cat is determined to be on camera. I was a history major and a double minor in art history and dramatic arts, which are actually the fields that I have found work in. So I had kind of a strange path after center. I had already signed on to work a job for the summer with Sarah Eggy, the one of the American history professors at center. And that job was to kind of go all across Kentucky, Ohio, and parts of Indiana, collecting oral histories from World War II veterans and establishing an archive of oral histories for the Kentucky Historical Society. And I did that because I thought I wanted to be a history professor, which I had come to the realization of that quite late and had not taken the GRE or done any prep for that. But I thought that that's what I wanted to do, and that's why I took that summer position. So I had the joy of leaving school after graduation and immediately coming back to the place I had just left, and kind of reevaluating what I really wanted to do. After that program, I, decided that I wanted to take a year basically to figure out what I actually wanted to do. I moved to Lexington with two friends who were doing grad programs at UK, and I spent that year doing just two kind of grueling retail jobs, which I do recommend everybody do, like some sort of service job at some point. I think that should be just mandatory for everyone. It, you know, basically it taught me most of the soft skills that I know about interacting with people and everything that I use in marketing all the time, the basics of sales and how you talk to people about product, how you build a brand. I worked for a company called Lush Cosmetics that has one of the best established brands and customer service kind of attitudes that I've ever seen in a company. And that kind of opened my eyes. Took the GRE, had decided I didn't really want to be involved in academia at all by that point, and so I did not do well. And I decided that that was not what I wanted to do. I had a friend from Center who was working at the Actors Theater of Louisville, in their marketing department. I had been extremely involved in theater at Center. I know, like, oh, here he comes. I know that everyone has like that one extracurricular that just kind of like sometimes can define you, and mine was definitely theater and choir. And so I had really missed that in my year, kind of just deciding what I wanted to do. Actors Theater of Louisville has this program called the Professional Training Company, which is a company of about 40 people who are hired for a season to learn how to do any job that you can do in a regional theater, in a professional theater. So you have about 20 actors, but you also have dramaturgs, directors, costume designers, set designers, and then you also have marketing, communications, sound, artistic production, all that stuff. She was working in the marketing department and had said, they hadn't really gotten any applicants they were excited about for their marketing apprenticeship. And I really missed theater and had now this kind of sales experience as like an assistant manager who also managed social media accounts for this brand. And so I, said, well, I'll just apply and see, if I'm a worthy candidate. And since I had someone to vouch for me, despite not having like a lot of like experience in college um, doing any sort of marketing or press or anything like that, I was a good writer. I had worked in the writing center and had had some things published in the Cento. And so my writing kind of spoke for me. And then my friend also spoke for me. Again, knowing someone is always going to be like one of the best things you can have to get a job. And so there I really learned the basics of not just marketing, but specifically nonprofit marketing and arts marketing, which is a whole, like much like healthcare marketing, it's a whole beast unto itself. You're working with no budget. You are marketing something that is both a public service and, a product and supporting the community. And so it's a real balancing act of like, you have a mission and an institution and like, these touchy-feely things that you're selling, but you're also selling a show, or in my case, an exhibition. And so I was also working retail still at that time because the apprenticeship was paid. But I was working about 60, 70 hours a week, which I don't recommend, but will probably happen at some point. And then in my final, I decided I really liked Louisville. I'm originally from Charleston, West Virginia. And so it's the biggest place I ever lived was Louisville. And because of the center network that I had established, I had good roots and a good community in Louisville. You also have a wonderful alumni network in Louisville that you can always reach out to. There's people from Center who work at every major business in the city, and you are always well connected there. So I applied for a job at the Speed Art Museum called the Social Media Promotions Coordinator. I had done some social media actors and Bush and knew how social media worked, but nobody quite knew what this position was at the Speed. I ended up getting it in June of 2018 and started working at the Speed. Again, nobody really knew what this job was. I was supposed to run the social media accounts, but no one was there to teach me anything. And so I was kind of figuring out how to do something on my own, which is when a lot of the times what happens when these like social media positions pop up, it's just like, oh, she's the social media guru, which no one knows what that means and no one knows what she does and no one knows how to metric it or anything like that. So I invented a kind of job for myself just based on what I knew how to do and what I knew I could improve. I put myself in a bunch of meetings and just invited myself to a bunch of committees, and just kind of from the ground up tried to learn how a nonprofit works, like with board relations, with ties to development and advancement, and finance and programming and all that stuff. So last January, I made the case for my job to be kind of promoted to a real job with a title people would understand. And so now I'm the marketing project manager, and I handle still all the social media accounts, but I also do digital marketing campaigns. I negotiate them with digital marketing kind of companies. I also do all the relations with the press, write all of our press releases, everything like that. I purchase media buys and negotiate media sponsorships, which is another thing you have to do with nonprofit marketing all the time, is negotiate things for free. And then I am a part of our advancement team. So I also work on fundraising and institutional marketing. And then I also work on the programming team. So my job has really changed since coronavirus. I handle all the digital everything. And when everything went digital, that suddenly became a much bigger part of my job. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Tori. So with that introduction, I want to open it up for any questions that students might have. You can unmute yourself and ask your questions or type it in the chat. We'll go from there. Well, while they're thinking of questions, I have a question for you, both of you. So thinking back about your time, about your time at Center and then where you are now, what is something that you would recommend to other students that they do while at Center? And then maybe something that you regret not doing that would have prepared you or affected kind of where you're at now?
Well, for me, I think that one thing that was helpful was, like I said, working on the CENTO staff, or just being involved in any organization that you're in. Try to get a leadership position, try to do something. It's really hard, especially I'm sure now coming out of college. We actually just hired a gentleman that's right out of college here in our office, and to show work experience that relates to what you're going to be doing. So definitely, like, retail is wonderful and it teaches you a lot, but sometimes when you're trying for that marketing position, they might be like, well, I know you were a server, you worked at, wherever, but if you can say, yes, but here's where I had some leadership positions, here's where I had some other things that I did that is related to the job that I'm trying to do. I think that that's really helpful. And so I just really feel like whatever job you have, whatever volunteer position you have, basically whatever you're doing, try to learn whatever skills and remember them and apply them to what you're doing. And also in the way that if you don't like something, then say, I definitely don't want to do that, and know that about yourself. And it's okay. That's what you do as you learn and grow. You decide this is really more for me or this is not. So I would say that. As far as what I wouldn't have done or what I wish I had done instead, I really don't know. I mean, Center's so small, or at least it was a lot smaller at the time I was there, that you really know everybody. And I think that's great because knowing people really helps a lot. That's how I got probably all but one of my jobs that I've ever had. And certainly it's not going to keep you from getting a job, but if people know you and know your work ethic, it can really help.
Yeah, I would say I never did an internship while I was at Center, and I know most people do. And I guess my job with Dr. Eggy after graduating kind of counted for what a lot of people would have done. But I probably would have tried to do that. It was hard. If anyone's ever done theater, it's big time suck. And so it just didn't allow me to do, hello, I hear you. It did not allow me to do a lot of things that would take time in like the evenings or weekends or things like that. But I do wish I had done something that would look like work experience on my resume, because as someone who hires people now, that is important to me to see. I I would say like the things that you are involved in, be intentionally involved in them. Like cultivate the relationships you have in the things you are doing. So like don't just be on the email list of a club. Like yeah, try and get a leadership position in the club, or at least be the member that shows up all the time, so that you 4 years down the line, when the president of Center whatever's is one of the hiring managers at wherever, you have kind of a, they know who you are and know that you're involved and committed to stuff. Something I wouldn't have done, or wish I had done, or
It's kind of both, either
yeah.
or.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think I would have taken more classes that kind of outside of my own initial interests, and just try and like dabble in everything as much as possible, because those opportunities kind of go away afterward, but they can lead to really interesting career paths. Like if I'd ever taken an economics class, that would have been really beneficial for the jobs that I had now, and I really enjoy learning about that sort of thing, and I just never would have known because it wasn't on my major or whatever.
So I want to keep pausing for the students. I have a follow-up question, but I want to make sure that they have the space to ask any questions they might have too. Joshua and Emma, do you have anything yet?
Emma has one in the chat.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm missing that. I have so many, I can't even see the chat. Hold on, there it is. Okay, because Center doesn't have a specific marketing major, what ways do you recommend doing in order to develop skills essential to marketing? Or are there any classes at Center that you'd recommend taking for a marketing position? And that kind of goes with mine too, Emma. So maybe I can add on to it. Hopefully it's not too much for you guys. Because there's no marketing major, because we're liberal arts, I do find that our students, their first internship, they have a really hard time kind of getting their foot in the door in that first experience. What do you recommend, in addition to what Emma asked, like, what do you recommend students do to be able to get that first position, to then be able to build on that?
One thing that I did was beyond the work that I did there, was I reached out to alumni. The alumni office is really good about giving a list of people that are in marketing, and even more specifically, I mean, you can look at the list and see where they work, and if that's something that you're interested in. And I will tell you, Center alums love to hear from Center students or fellow alums, and so they will always welcome an email, and just, hey, I want to reach out, can you tell me a little bit about you, and just start building that network. And they'll be happy to answer any of your questions or work with you or whatever. So that's kind of a nice first step if you're trying to get an internship. Obviously, they're not going to always be right there, but they might know of somebody who's looking for someone. And so I think that would be really good, is just to start making those connections. As far as classes, again, like an economics course is probably really good. Anything that is communications related, and I don't know how it is now, but when I was there, we had the winter term or the center term, where they had some kind of different classes a lot of times, and I took some of those, and those were really good. So sometimes you might be able to find a class there that sort of relates to marketing, and so that can be really helpful. And I would say, any kind of writing class is really beneficial as well.
Yeah, I would say I also, like, when I look at resumes now, look for like involvement in extracurricular things. Like, everyone who applies, for example, for this one internship that I have up now is like a marketing communications manager or major. And that really doesn't tell me much about them as a person. I already know they're interested in marketing because they're applying for this position. So like, what are they specifically interested in, and to what degree have they been involved in making that happen? So if they are, the financial chair of their sorority, for example, now I know that they understand how to maintain, a spreadsheet at the basic level, or, talk to people about money. Or if they, so I look at things like that, like look at positions within organizations that you can have leadership positions in that can reflect that you are organized, that you communicate well, that you are a leader, that you can work well with people. So for specific classes, I would say, yeah, econ and things like that. I think things that can teach you how to read data for marketing are really key, and can be really just important for like a hard skill to have. But at the end of the day, I want a good writer over anything. For me, and in my job specifically, being passionate about the thing that we market and being able to talk about it in a way that sounds better than anyone else can talk about it is the most important thing to me.
And I'll also say, on resumes, put on there what you don't have to have like a big long drawn out sentence. And it may be because you're so young, again, you have some of those other jobs that may not be exactly marketing related, but there are things you can do, and put that on there. If you know how to do desktop publishing, if you've used InDesign, if you've used Photoshop, absolutely go ahead and put that on there, because they're not going to know otherwise. And if you're in a sea of people and they're looking for somebody who has that Photoshop experience, they're just going to pass you on by if you don't put that on there, even if you have it. And I'd say also really advocate for yourself in an interview. Let them know what you've been doing and what you're into, because like Tori said, we know you're interested in marketing because that's why you're applying, but show why it's different. Take some initiative. I know that the guy that we just hired, like I said, he's fresh out of school, and on his resume, he had different oh gosh, it's a Google classification, but he was like an expert level at different things. So you have time right now, if you have the ability while you're home to do some of those classes, then go ahead and do them, because it really shows initiative and it gives you really good skills as you go along.
I think that's a good point. And I think those Google certifications or whatever they are free, right?
I think so.
I think so too.
I would say just if you are really passionate about a thing, and you can show that you've done a lot of work to make this to bring this passion project to life, or to like really show that this is something you care about a lot. I guess I'm biased because I'm a project of the liberal arts, but like a product of the liberal arts, but I always value that in someone that, maybe I don't know, it could be as silly as like, I started an Instagram for my pet, but it's like, oh, well, now it has 3,000 followers and I learned how to do photography skills and I learned how to write copy and all that stuff. So, develop your own interests, and it really does pay off.
I want to add a little bit because I think that's a really great point. There are lots of opportunities on Center's campus to get some kind of free or unpaid experience, right? For that kind of stuff, for a club that you're involved in, or even personal projects or Sodexo. I'm sure they'd be happy if somebody walked up to them and said, can I do social media for you? There are lots of opportunities even on campus to be able to do some of that kind of stuff. Well, we are very quickly at the end of our time. I want to give either a last chance for any other questions from the students. And then if there aren't any questions, then maybe kind of a last bit of advice or that you might have for the students going forward.
My little piece of advice would be, if you're interviewed anywhere for any job, any internship, volunteer, anything like that, write a thank you note. It doesn't have to be, long and drawn out. Just get a nice looking classic thank you note, right? Dear so-and-so, thank you so much for your time. I really would, appreciate working with you in the future. Something like that, just to show that you care. It really goes a long way.
Yeah, I would say, and this is a personal pitch, but if you can ever take a public speaking class or an acting 101 class or anything that teaches you how to be on in front of people in a way that might not be like genuinely comfortable for you, but gives you the skills to do it, like it teaches you how to sell yourself, how to sell a brand, how to like be comfortable being in public. And that is like so important.
Well, thank you both for your time today. Oh shoot, I've lost it. I want to share, hold on, give me 1 second. Of course, everything's being slow when you're in a hurry. So, you know, both Tori and Jacquie had mentioned networking is really important. I do have their contact information, so if either of you want to get in touch with them, feel free to contact me directly. I also want to let you know, if you don't know about it, I just put it in the chat, it's our Career Mentor Network. So students, you can sign up for that. It's really easy. If you use your center.edu address, it automatically approves you. And then the alumni, if you are not in there already, we would love for you to be. And it's a space for people to offer kind of networking advice, you know, relocation advice, anything like that. And it can be a really strong tool to begin that network. And then we've had this conversation in other mini career chats, that you're always going to continue networking. So this space is also for our alumni to connect with each other too, because we do have a strong alumni network at Center. And so in this particular platform are people who are offering that specifically and signing up for it. So please go check it out if you're interested. And then again, reach out to me if you want to be in touch with Tori or Jacquie. And thank you. And normally in real life, we always clapped, but not so much anymore. It becomes very loud online. So thank you both for your time.
You're very welcome. This has been fun. I really enjoyed it.
Happy holidays. All that.
Bye.
Bye.
Tori, I love your cat, by the way.
I know. You
I
should
can hear
never
him meowing.
apologize.
He's so
Just
cute.
let her keep going.
He's sitting on my work laptop